Good morning, everybody. Just going to give a couple of seconds to allow everybody to join, and I'll be with you. Great, we'll get started. So welcome, thanks for joining us for this webinar where we're going to talk about data, a really interesting topic. We're quite excited to be talking to you about this today. For those of you who may know a little bit about Hart, who may want to know more, if you just move on to the next slide. We work in the non-profit sector. We're a consultancy. We work with our clients who are the amazing organizations, and we support them to do remarkable things. So we support them on a variety of projects. We are independent. We're non-aligned to any particular technology, or we work on behalf of our clients, and we work with them to support them to do those remarkable things as a trusted critical friend. So we're objective, we're impartial, we're there to make them be the best version of themselves. So a little bit of etiquette just to make you aware. This session is going to be recorded and will be available online. There are two boxes to make available for you. So the Q&A box is for you to ask questions. We will do our best to answer those questions towards the end and make sure we cover off anything you want to know. And there's also a chat box there if you have any technical issues, then just detail it in that box and our colleagues will be able to support you with that. So to start with, I'll ask my colleague Andrew to introduce himself.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Andrew Scanlan. I'm one of the senior business change consultants at Hart. I've been at Hart about 4.5 years. Currently working on a big implementation project at a membership organisation, but I have a lot of experience in and across the whole not-for-profit sector, working for and with charities and membership organisations. I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you a little bit about data.
Fantastic, thank you, Andrew. I'm Rhys Evans, Head of Technology and Services. So what that involves is both looking into the market and seeing what products, services are available for our clients, understanding what they can do, how they can do it, and to give that range of options to the people we work with, and equally to look at the services we deliver, so the projects we deliver, and making sure that we're learning and that we're making sure that we're doing the best things in the best way, and we're bringing the benefit of delivering all those different activities back to the new clients that we work with, and we're learning as we go. And I think, in the 9 years that I've worked for Hart, I think the majority of projects and clients we work with have all been looking at data and improving how they use their data. So how they collect it, how they manage it, and how they use it better. And I think the phrase that's on the title, a single source of truth, is kind of the shorthand for trying to get to a state where you've got a kind of collected, usable, fit for purpose set of data and tools where you can actually start doing the kind of the interesting, exciting things that everybody's talking about. And we know that we live in an information and data age, and I think this is a goal that really unites everybody. Most people are some way on this path, and I think in future it's only going to be more the case. I think the organization's success is going to be directly linked to how effectively they can use data. So it's a really important topic, and it's something that our consultants are working with clients on every single day. And I think from my experience, one of the big issues with data is that to start with, it looks like a mountain to climb. It looks like a very difficult thing to achieve, and also it looks like a long way from starting off to actually getting to the point where you're getting benefits and feedback. And I don't think that necessarily needs to be the case, and I think that's what we're going to kind of explore and unpack a little bit today. But to start with, what we'd like to do is to get a little bit of an indication in terms of the audience, where you are and what the challenges that you're facing. So I'm going to start a poll, and it'd be great if you could give us an idea of what the challenge that you're facing is at the moment. So I've just opened that, so if you could give a response. It's very much a mixed bag at the moment. interested. So there's a lot around data quality, which is definitely something that we'll talk about in this session, but also about getting staff to understand how data can be used. So that kind of cultural element, which is very much something we will talk to. So really interesting. I'll end that, and you can see the results now. So what I would say is, I think, in terms of the spread there, I think a lot of those things are going to be covered, and Andrew's going to kind of take us through a lot of those issues. If there's something specific that we don't cover, then absolutely feel free to pop that in the Q&A box, and we'll do our best to kind of talk about that towards the end. Great. With that done, then I'll pass you over to Andrew, who will take us through the presentation.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Reese. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. I'm going to talk through some of the sort of issues that I find with data, look at some of the challenges we have, talk a little bit about what practical steps you can do to get in control of your data, talk a little bit then about data migration, what that really means, and then some steps again after a project that you can do to really keep control of your data. So first of all, so what is data and why is it so important? And this is a definition I found on the internet. I think it's Wikipedia. Information collected to be examined and considered and used to help with making decisions. And I found this very interesting because it doesn't talk about processing data. It doesn't talk about membership or fundraising in any sort of distinct way. It's really talking about data is something that you use to help with making decisions. And this is how we refer to data here at Hart Square in a number of our presentations. Data is not as exciting as new technology. You don't embark on any kind of transformation project with data in mind necessarily. It is all about that shiny new technology. But the data is more important. It's your data which gives you the insight, gives you the information, which helps drive you forward, which helps your organizational transformation. And I'm going to hark back to this point a few times throughout the presentation. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the challenges, and these are things that I see and all of my colleagues see on a regular basis. We hear these things from all of our clients. Any issues, any problems, any challenges that you have with data, you are not alone. We hear about data silos all the time, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a moment. We hear about data being unclean. It's unusable, it's inconsistent. Information is not usable because the data is not high quality. Repeatedly, we hear about sort of duplicate entry across multiple systems. It leads to that kind of inconsistency, leads to error between the different systems that people use. Nothing is integrated. Everything is a manual integration, extracting information from one system, inputting it into another at the very most. And I saw on the quite a few answers on the poll a minute ago that data is unstructured. It's impossible to query it or report on it effectively. And I say we hear all of these things all the time from all of our clients. What this leads to is a situation where actually none of your staff trust the data. What they're reading, they don't believe, they don't understand, they don't trust it. And that actually exacerbates the problem. It just leads to more data silos, more spreadsheets, more unclean data, less consistency. So talking about data silos in particular, because I think this is how we need to think about the data challenges you may have towards building that single source of truth. It's very common for us to see an organization where there may be a membership or a fundraising system holding contact details, individual names, addresses, email addresses, organizations, financial information, donations, membership payments, invoices, direct debits, things like that. might hold membership details, grades, renewals, histories, etc. And that's a single system, works very well, perhaps for the individuals who use that. Alongside that, however, might be a separate email marketing system. Again, holding contact information, names, maybe not addresses, but certainly email addresses, and all of your marketing data, your segments, your personalization, your open rates, and particularly your preferences and opt-outs. Separate again to that might be an event management system, CPD system, an exam system, again, holding contact information, names, addresses, email addresses. In the case of an event system, also then the events themselves and details about bookings, attendees, delegates. It might also hold financial information related to those events, so event payments, invoices, things like that. Finally, you might have another system, volunteers, inquiries, again, holding contact information, holding inquiry information, workflows, things like that. And each one of these systems, perhaps in place with an individual department, a business unit, perhaps working across a couple, but they are sort of static. Perhaps a little bit of integration between the systems. It may be as simple as an export of information on an irregular basis from your membership database going into that email marketing system so that you've got an up-to-date list of contacts. But often I find that there is no integration between these multiple pillars, each of these different silos. A single source of truth looks to bring all of that together. It's not necessarily about having a single system that drives everything, but it is about making sure that individual systems that you may have to run your email marketing or your events or your CPD are tightly and well integrated. So a single source of truth will bring together your contact information, your organizational information, all of your financials, so donations, memberships, events, invoices, all of your events, so the delegates, the bookings, all of your marketing, etc., together so that it is accessible from a single place. It allows you to see that full relationship that you have with an individual stakeholder. You can see if someone is a regular donor, also comes to events and is a volunteer. And you can see and start to track the relationship you have with each of your stakeholders on a much more granular level. You can see all of the donations, membership, events, payments that they have made. You can see all of the events that they have booked on and been to. You can see all of the preferences, opt-outs, all in one place. And this is what a single source of truth is, in my view. I think the first step towards creating that single source of truth is really understanding the data that you have. So looking at a contact, an individual record, you could have a contact on your fundraising CRM. Perhaps that is integrated with your event management software. Perhaps you have that same information held on your CMS, your portal, to allow your supporter to come and self-service their record. But alongside that, you might have that contact on your email marketing. You might have that contact on your volunteer database, neither of which is effectively integrated. But also you need to start thinking wider. You're very likely to have that contact perhaps existing in people's outlooks, and certainly communications to and from your stakeholders can exist only in individuals' Outlook addresses. And I expect that you'll have lots and lots of spreadsheets as you try and join information together from your different siloed systems, many spreadsheets. And the first step, I think, to understanding your data is to really examine where everything is. And in the case of a contact, some questions to ask yourself. Have you got the same contact across multiple systems? Is that information consistent? Are you holding the same information in the same way? Are addresses all entered consistently? Is there address management software on one system but not on another? Is that data clean? Are those systems automatically integrated? Is there an automated process? Does it work in both directions? So you're sending information from your main fundraising database into your email system and back. Is there a master record in some way? Do you consider your fundraising CRM or your volunteer database to be the one true record for that supporter? And how do you know if that's the case? And finally, how might you be able to find and link together any duplicate records that you might have? Do you have an ID number, some kind of identification that is consistent across all of those different sources? Can you use an individual's name? Probably not, in the case of John Smith and people like that. Can you use an email address or a postcode? Possibly more likely, and I think email addresses tend to be something which is unique to an individual. But it may be that you'll need to use a combination of these items to be able to find and link together an individual record across those multiple systems. So something that we do at Hart Square regularly with our clients when they're embarking on a transformation project with us is undertake a data audit. So this is really going around your whole organization, understanding the data that you hold, having an amnesty on everybody's spreadsheets, Outlook, card file, index even, so that you have a very good picture, a very good record of the data that you hold. What's the data source? Is it a fundraising CRM? Is it a volunteer database? Is it a spreadsheet? Is it another system that you have? What data does it contain? High level, this is fundraising information, but also break that down a little bit. Name, address, donations, regular gift history, tracking of trusts, foundations, prospective supporters, membership histories, things like that. And what volume of data is there? Is this a source that has thousands of records, tens of thousands, or is it a spreadsheet with 15 people who are a member of a particular committee? And who owns that data? Very importantly, who is the person or the department that really has that data front and center in their business processes? What's that data used for? Is it used to process an individual's journey through your organization, or is it used for reporting, or a bit of both? Is that data structured and is it consistent? And how clean is the data? Is it something that is the data in a usable format? Does it need work on it to make it clean? And really importantly, if you're embarking on a transformation project, you do need to ask yourself, do you need that data in your new system? And we'll come back to that a little bit as we go through. I say this is something that we do regularly. This is just a screenshot of our data migration assessment template. It's an Excel list with fields for those kind of questions that I've just posed. But it allows us to really then keep a record of all of the different kinds of data that an organization holds, and allows us to really understand what will be required in the new system and therefore plan a migration accordingly. I am going to talk a little bit about a data migration, what this means. I'm going to try not to go into too much detail, but it is an important part of managing and transforming your data. A few data migration myths to begin with, however. Data cleansing is a low priority task we can chip away at. This is absolutely not true. Data cleansing for a transformation project is a very high priority task. If you think you can chip away at it, then it will never get done. Very simple. Data quality improvement is an inevitable consequence of migration. This tends not to be true. If you're not cleaning your data beforehand, you will just end up with bad data in your new system. There may be some tools in your new system that will better enable you to find and clean new data, but you shouldn't rely on that. It's very important to get your data as clean as possible before a migration. A better system will make our data more usable. This isn't true, most certainly. A better system will just show you more clearly the bad data that you have. It will make it easier for you to send the wrong information to the wrong person at the wrong time because of the poor quality of data that you have there. We can take more data and trim it in the new system. My view is that less is more. The more data that you are trying to migrate, the more challenge you will have, the more difficulty there will be, the more chance of error there will be, and therefore the longer, the more complex and more costly the data migration part of your project will be. Data mapping from the old system to the new will be simple and self-evident. I don't think this is true. If it were true, you have to question why you are migrating to that new system. The new system will do things in a different way. It will structure the data differently, in a better way to allow you to move forward with that data in your reporting, your query, your processing of information. And finally, the technology partner will do it all. Your technology partner will certainly be there to help, but if you're expecting them to do all of your migration, it will be costly, it will take longer, and you will lose an important ownership of that part of the process. The data migration journey, just to go through a little bit so that we understand, it starts with planning, identifying, analysing, selecting that data. So going back to that data audit we talked about earlier, that is that first step of that data migration journey, really understanding and planning the data that you need to bring across. The next step, extracting that data, cleaning it, consolidating it, multiple sources into one place, exporting it from your legacy system. In the middle, we have a transformation step, changing that data so that it will fit in the new system, mapping it so you understand where the field from your legacy system, where that will go on your new system. Let's say changing that most likely as part of that journey so that it goes in the new system in a usable way. Then the step that your technology partners absolutely will do is loading that data, importing, migrating that data into your new system. This is absolutely where your technology partner has a huge role. There's no expectation that you will need to do that. And then finally, back to you to validate it, to test it, to test it, to test it. Testing that data, and as you test it, errors, problems are found, you go back to that transformation step. It's remapped, reloaded, retested. And I'll talk a little bit more about the testing in a second. That all sounds complex. I know it does, but you don't need to be scared. You do not need to be a technical computer coder, computer programmer to work with data. That is absolutely not true. You do need to have a good understanding of your organization's data. You do need to have a way of extracting it from your legacy system. So that can be as simple as using your export tools to bring it into Excel. You do need to have a good eye for detail and care and attention. It's easy to muck up data if you're not concentrating. But you do not need to understand SQL to be able to work in code, look at everything from your kind of back end of your system. That is not true. You don't need to aim for perfection either. Good migrated data should be your goal here. Perfect data does not exist because that source data can be very low quality. So you need to be pragmatic. You might need to make decisions about what you can do as part of that data migration. It might be better to bring historical information over into your new system in a slightly different way than the new data will be created. You need to be pragmatic about whether you really need it. Less is definitely more in a data migration. If you don't need it, don't migrate it. Do you need 20 years worth of transactions, invoices, donations? Probably not. And the more you bring across, the more risk you have of complication and additional time and money required. Now, I've said that your tech partner won't do it all. That's absolutely true. You need to have some ownership, but speak to them if you need help, or use other third-party data specialists. We do at Hart Square. We bring others in at times where a client needs a little bit of support with their data migration. So just moving on to testing. Testing your data is the most important part of a data migration. It's very simple, but it is a really key and individual step. Testing your data is not the same as testing your functionality. Testing your data needs to be a separate activity, potentially using many of the same people who will be testing the system functionality, but it needs to be a very separate part of your transformation process. It is quite simple. It's bring up your old system, bring up the new system, compare the same records side by side. Is the name the same? Is the address the same? Are the number of donations as you expect? Are the membership history the same? Are the funds that they have given to the same? Have the event records that you expect, have they been brought across? Have there been errors? Have there been mistakes made? But it is very simple. It is compare the old record to the new record. I always make sure that people select a wide range of different records to check. It's not the case that you can check 2 or 3. You'll need to be checking tens of records, perhaps across a number of different segments. So 20 or so records on each one of your membership types. 10 records for donations for every campaign, that kind of thing. One of the things that I always recommend, test the people that you know. The regular donor who always comes to the events, the person that you work with regularly, check their record. Make sure that the people that you work with, that their records are correct. Check the irritating people who complain, who book onto every event but never attend. Make sure that you're checking all of those records as a matter of course. They're the people that you know, the people that you work with regularly. Log the errors. So what's wrong with the data? Using as much information as possible, potentially taking screenshots of your old system, taking screenshots of the new system, making sure that it's replicable. Remember, if you're testing sort of tens and tens of records, you test one, there's an error on it, continue to test 3 or 4 records, maybe more after that. Is the error still appearing across a number of different records and a number of different segments? The more errors the more information you provide when you're logging those errors, the easier it may be to fix them. Work with your tech partner to resolve those. So what's wrong? Do we need to remap that data? Have we put the postcode field in the county field at a very simple level? Does it just need to be remapped? Or is there something else that needs to happen? That there's a bit more logic or change that needs to happen with that data as it goes across from your legacy system to your new system? You may also then need to reload some of that data, potentially more of that data than the single field where you have found that error. It needs to be reloaded so it's back in your new system and you can carry on testing. Finally, test again. Look at the data where you found the errors, but don't restrict yourself to that. And again, don't expect to test 1, 2, 3 records. You need to be testing more and more records so that you've got a good idea across your full breadth of data and the different segments you have. And this is a continuous loop. The data is loaded, you test it, log the errors, reload it, retest it. We would expect to go through this process multiple times. We also expect there to be a sort of growing level of success across those different tests. Don't expect to get more than 60% of the data correct the first time, the first migration. Expect to grow that maybe to 85% as you do that second load, that second test, and 95% as you do that third test. There is no such thing as perfect data. And in my opinion, that quest for that last 5% will end up costing a considerable amount of time, effort, and energy. There is no such thing as perfect data. And then a couple of things then really about after your transformation project. How do you keep your data high quality? I think the first thing, it's all about working inside the box. Your new system will have much more functionality. It will have related and grouped together a lot more data from across your whole organization. It will allow you now to start reporting and querying about people who have attended events, given donations, have a membership, and volunteer. So all of that kind of linkage of the relationship you have with any individual will now be within one system or easily accessible within that one system. So it really means no more exports to Excel, no more taking data out the system to manipulate it further, no more taking data out the system to work on it for a mailing list, to report on it for your manager. It's all about working inside the box. And this, I think, also means no more unintegrated departmental technologies. I've certainly seen clients where there are a lot of pet technologies essentially across the organization, where different departments have bought in different things for different business processes. Now, this doesn't need to stop, but it does mean there needs to be an overall plan for how those different technologies will be brought on board and integrated. Really importantly, they need to be integrated within that one ecosystem, so that you're able then to start bringing their data from those separate systems into your single source of truth as well. Ensure all of your data sets have an identifiable owner, someone who is responsible for the use of that data, the cleanliness of that data, and the usability of that data. That identified owner can be a department or an individual, and think about each of your data sets. So it isn't the case potentially that one person in the whole organization is your data owner. The fundraising team might have the fundraising data potentially split across individual giving trusts and foundations, as an example. You might have an exams team if you're a membership organization, particularly responsible for that exams data. But make sure there is an identified owner for each one of those data sets. Create a top-down governance approach, and I think this is really important. So make sure that data quality, data control is something that is embedded from the top down in your organization. Ensuring your staff are trained in how to use your systems. And that isn't just a case of the practicalities of using a CRM, but skilled in how they need to consistently enter data, trained in how they can deduplicate that data. If there's any question about how a business process works, make sure that your staff are able to answer it so that they can ensure that that data is consistent as they use it. And I think that good data starts at acquisition. making sure your customer journeys are all as integrated as possible, so that your members, your stakeholders, your donors are able to go onto your website, make a donation, join your organization effectively, efficiently, and with the right kind of data. Make sure that data the data that you collect is correct, it's proportionate. You're not over collecting or taking things that you don't need. And I think also review your data retention expectations. How long do you need that data for? What is your policy for keeping data, for destroying data when it is no longer required? And there's a link here. I'm not going to click on it in this presentation, but for when these slides are shared, there's a very good resource that I found on the Information Commissioner's Office. Really breaks down best practice, records management, data management, and security. A lot of questions that it asks of you, but also some very practical tips of how you can make sure that you're keeping your data management and security high quality. So I recommend having a look at that when you see the slides. Something else that we've done at Hart Square is a data value analysis. This is different from, but can easily follow your data audit. Your data audit is all about knowing what the data is that you have and where it's stored. But the value analysis is really an understanding of how you use that data and what the opportunities are for that data. We would run a series of workshops going across the whole organization, trying to understand every business unit's behaviors, their user behaviors, how they use that data, how they're inputting, and their individual sort of business unit thoughts about the governance of that data. We'd talk about and map out potentially your data acquisition journeys, whether they are sort of supporter, member self-service, or there are other routes of data into your organizations. We could map out with you how your systems, how your data is integrated, what you use that data for. Is it data purely for processing? Is it to report? Is it to analyze? Is it to produce sort of workflow for your organization? We'll talk to you about sort of aspirational reporting, how you might want to report. What are the things that you would like to do in your analysis of your data? We'd look at how that was delivered to you as well, and what you need for the successful processing of all of that data. So it's really trying to unpick what your data challenges are. What do you want to do but you can't? But also, what are the opportunities that you see with that data? Really trying to help you understand how you can generate business value from that data. What are the things that we can do and you can do to continue to generate more value from that data? And as I said right at the start, data is more important than technology in terms of your business transformation. And this kind of data value analysis, I think, is a very clever way of helping you understand what you can do with that data, how far it can help you take your organization and your transformation. So a few takeaways for you, and hopefully reiterating some of the things that I've said throughout this presentation. Firstly, start early. You don't need to be halfway through a transformation project before you start thinking about your data, before you start working on your data, before you start preparing it. And actually, in my experience, the earlier you start thinking about and preparing your data in a transformation project, the better it will be for you, the better results you will get. Understand your data. That's very much the first step. Really urge you all, think about doing that kind of data audit, with leaving no stone unturned, looking at all the unlikely places, and amnesty on everybody's spreadsheets, card file indexes, PET systems, whatever it might be. Data doesn't end with migration. I know it's a very important step in a transformation project, but actually once the data is in the new system, that's where it can start to really work for you. So your work with data shouldn't end when you have successfully migrated into that new system. And really importantly, no organisation is too small. Don't think there's only a few of us. We don't have the resources, or we don't have the need even. And it's true, I've worked certainly with a number of very big organisations with large data teams. They are well resourced in dealing with data, but even at the smallest organisation, there are practical things that you can do to really understand, to know your data, to know the opportunities that it gives you. And I'd really say no organisation is too small to be really thinking about how best their data serves them. Ongoing data governance is vital. You've spent the time, the money, the effort, the energy to clean your data, to get it into a new system, make sure it stays usable after you go live. Governance is a vital part of that to make sure it remains high quality. Don't be scared. I know that data can be a murky area. I have certainly presented a few things that are more complex, but don't be scared. You don't need to be a technology expert to understand your data, to work with data, to run a successful migration and manage your data effectively afterwards. You do need a good eye for detail and making sure that you're not making mistakes, but beyond that, it's not a complex process, so don't be scared. And finally, just to sort of go back to where I started, it's your data that leads to your business transformation. The new technology is a tool to enable you to use your data better, to access your data better, to report your data better, but it is the data itself that leads to your transformation. Well, thank you very much. I think there is some time for questions now as well.
Great, thank you very much, Andrew. That's really really insightful, and I can tell and I know that's hard earned from a variety of kind of experiences and challenges and various different projects. I think that, I mean, of the points there that really resonated with me that I've heard so many times is about starting early. And there's so many organizations that we work with that just, you know, they get further through a project or a process and just said, we could have started this years ago and we'd be able to do so much more and be so much further along, and we'd be able to do the exciting things earlier and get the benefits earlier. So yeah, starting early, kind of facing up to it is really important. So we've had some great questions. One that came through that was really interesting is about the best way to convince senior management of the importance of sorting out data before you migrate it, and how to help them understand that that's going to be a lengthy process.
That is an interesting question. I think it's about giving your senior managers the right kind of business insight. I am certain that if you're in a position where you've got poor quality data, your senior management team will be crying out for better reporting, more accurate reports or more detailed reports, year-on-year reporting, analysis of things. And I think that's really the starting point. Good data leads to the ability to report better, to make better decisions based on that data. And I think that would be my starting point. We need to start sorting the data out now. The transformation project might not be for some time. We might not see the benefits of the reporting, improved reporting for some time, but we need to start that process now to clean the data up, to be able to enable you as a senior management team to have the insights you need to strategically drive the organization forwards.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I think when it comes to senior management, I think talking about benefits and how this translates into benefits, particularly, you know, these projects are really risky, and the riskiest thing you can do is to ignore the quality of the data that's going into a data migration. That really kind of undermines the investment, undermines the business case. And the other thing I think is worth kind of leveraging in that situation is that the sector is riddled with both horror stories and positive stories about either ignoring data or dealing with it correctly. So I think making, bringing out some of those kind of case studies and even linking up and getting some relationships and networking to say, look, we took this on properly and we really, really don't regret it, and bringing those stories, because I think that can give a lot of weight to back the credibility for the argument of getting stuck in, which is what we need to do.
I don't think I've ever been involved in a CRM project where there was not the objective of we need to improve our reporting. That's always an objective in every CRM project that I've worked on. It's the data that enables that as much as the technology. Yes, a new CRM, a new technology might give you better reporting options, but your reports are still going to be rubbish if the data is not of high quality.
Yeah, or people just won't trust them.
Yeah,
is a big factor. There's a really good question about where someone is in a small organization, they don't have somebody whose role is specifically around data. What skills or type of role does it take to lead on a project like this? Does it need a specialist?
In terms of the data, no, I don't think it does. I'm sure that there are people in your organization who have an understanding of the data that you use and the system that you use. And I'm sure that there are straightforward exporting tools to be able to take that data out of your system into Excel, most likely. A good eye for detail, as I said earlier, really making sure that you can see the detail across sort of many rows, many lines of data. And someone who is able to really concentrate, make sure they're not making mistakes. I think those are the most important parts of sort of most important skills that you need to have when working with data. It may be that kind of role is split across a number of people, where sort of one person has very good knowledge of their department's data. Someone from another department has the knowledge of the data that they use, just to bring that together. And if you're struggling to extract that data from your system, I would say talk to your existing system supplier. They can certainly help you access that data, whether that's by sort of going into the back end tables themselves, extracting that data for you, or more importantly, helping you to become self-sufficient in that area, helping you use the export tools, expand on the exports that might already be set up so that you can get the data out into Excel. And I think that's the advice I'd give. No organization, as I said, is too small to be thinking about data, but also it's not something that requires hugely technical skills. But where you find you may have limitations, talk to your existing technology providers.
Yeah, and there are a lot of good technology providers who specifically work in this area who can offer skills. What I would say, and is a real cautionary tale, I think, is whether you bring somebody in, recruit somebody with skills, or you bring somebody who's already within the organization into a data role, is to give them the chance to do some of the background, to go backwards a little bit and to build the governance and to do some of that work. Because I've seen a lot of examples where the expectation is they can kind of go in, pull a rabbit out of a hat and do great reporting without doing any of that good work to start with. So you need to manage internal expectations so they got the space to actually take the organization forward. I've seen a few examples of that hasn't happened. It's a shame because you don't get the full benefit. There's a question on the kind of data audit process and who should own the process, and including agreeing the parameters, telling staff about it, and making sure it's been completed properly.
Well, I think I'm in the fortunate position, I guess, of when I have done that, it's part of my role as a project manager consultant in a transformation project. If you are embarking on that kind of transformation CRM replacement, the person you've identified as your project lead internally is probably the best placed person to manage it, to have ownership of it. But I think it's really important that the message comes top down from your senior management team, that this is a very vital part of identifying all of the data that you hold. And as I said a few times, it's really important that there's a kind of amnesty. Nobody's going to get in trouble for having 15 different spreadsheets and working entirely within Outlook to keep their data. It's not about sort of naming and shaming poor data users. It's about really understanding all of the data that you hold, what it's used for, what the opportunities may be for that data. So I think it's really important that that message comes very much top down. We need to understand our full data picture. People will be in touch with you. We need you to tell them the data that you hold, no matter what's the source, so that we can log it, so that we can register it, and so that we can consider it for the next stages of our transformation. If it doesn't get added to this register, we're not going to consider it for migrating into the new systems and the advantages that will bring for our management of that data.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. There's, I think we've got time for another couple of quick questions. So there's a couple I'm actually going to combine. One is about how you ensure that bad data practices don't creep in after you've done a lot of good work and you've done a lot of the kind of cleaning and sorting out. And there's another one which I think is aligned, which is about how you train staff to use a new CRM and how you stop them reverting back to the spreadsheets and some of the kind of pre-change activity and behaviours once you've actually gone live with it.
I think both of those, there's an element of your technology kind of does some of that for you, if I'm honest, not wholly, but your new system, your better system, gives you more ability to be able to record data, register data well, probably has more options in terms of kind of drop down pick lists, potentially workflows that help you keep your data much more consistent. So there's an element of it's just easier and better in the new system to be able to use that, and there's a bit of that then keeps that data much more consistent than your old system ever would. That certainly doesn't go the whole way. That certainly doesn't go the whole way. And I think this is where that kind of data governance comes in. It has to be top down again, that we do not expect to see people using Excel. We do not expect people to be exporting and manipulating data outside the system. Secure some of that down, perhaps, so people simply can't extract their data. It's very much more than keeping people in the box and keeping people trained, not just on the practicalities of using the system, click here, enter that, but also the whys of using the system and the benefit of using the system in terms of the reporting to the management, but also the benefit for them and their job in keeping things structured and inside the box. Yeah,
absolutely, completely agree. And there's one question that came in that might actually answer myself in terms of would a medium or large NFP go towards a best of breed tech stack, so technology platform, and implement a data warehouse to transform, select and report their data. I mean that's a viable option, but I would say is that most discussions on the right structure and technology tend to date very badly because the technology is evolving very quickly, and there's normally a lot of different ways to do it. I mean, particularly with those tech stacks, with the Microsoft world and the Salesforce world, I think most of their growth and development is around the technologies to use data because it's the premium area. So that is viable. What I would say is I'd attach it to one of the other another question about data strategy. I would actually be kind of going right back to, you know, what are the kind of the barriers, what are people seeking to do, what kind of, it's really about what kind of tools ultimately will get data in front of the organization and start getting people to use it, and then going back and looking at the solutions that support that. So we have seen lots of data warehouse projects, collating data outside of all your systems together into one system. It's perfectly viable, but equally we've seen some other technologies arrive more recently, customer data platforms and a few others that do offer some other options. So yeah, I think it's going backwards and then seeing what might best address that. But that's where you may leaning on a specialist who might have experience of a number of different approaches is a good way to go. I think that probably runs us to time. I want to make sure that everybody can kind of get away and have a little breather before get to the next meetings. But firstly, thanks, Andrew. That was really insightful. I think there's a lot of things that people can take away, and an awful lot of kind of experience that backs a lot of those words and sentiments. Yeah, no, thank you to everybody attended. Thanks for the great questions, and yeah, in whatever you do, Data, best of luck.
Thank you very much, Rhys.